So this is an overview of the process of taking a running record. You are going to select the text, take the running record, and then you're going to analyze it. So now I'm not talking about the kit. I'm talking about taking a running record on familiar text. Familiar means that the child has encountered it once during guided reading. That you taught it, maybe it's the next day, maybe it's a couple days later, and you're going to take a running record on what you taught. Because what you learn from a cold read is different from what you learn from a warm read. On a cold read, you are learning how does a child, are they willing to take risks? What can they do with no support all on their own? On a familiar text that they've encountered one time during guided reading, you're looking for how are they incorporating what I just taught. And if all it took was teaching a book one time for a student to master it, we'd have no struggling readers. Even after you've taught it, they will still make errors that are insightful to us as reading teachers. So you're going to choose a text at the child's instructional level. You'll select a passage. I like right around 100 words because, first of all, it's quicker to take the running record, and if it's 100 words, it's very easy to do the math. If you look inside guided reading books that I use, I will count out 100 words and pencil in 100. And my children say, why does it say 100 right here? Should I erase that? No, please don't erase that. And I'll go through the entire six-pack and just, so teachers' admission, if you see 100, that's what it is. And you can help each other out by just counting out 100 and penciling in, this is where it is. If there are fewer than 100 words in some of the level A and B and sometimes C, then you just use the whole text. Okay. The child sits next to you. This is important. If you're right-handed, sit on the child's right. If you're left-handed, sit on the child's left. You want the hand that's doing the writing away from them. You need to sit right next to them so that you can see the book. They don't sit across from you. They're right next to you. You introduce the text. If it's a cold read, they have good introductions in here. If you've taught it for guided reading, you say, remember we read this? It's about when Bingo knocked down the toys or whatever. And then you observe and record everything the child says and does during the reading. And we will talk about how you do that. You also want to notice things such as, how does that child orient themselves to a book? Haven't you had kids that while they're reading, it's like they're trying to leave? Here's the book, and you're sitting here, and they're like turned in their chair, and their legs are over there. Those are kids that are very uncomfortable with what they're doing. They're showing you, I don't want to be here, this is not good for me. And then you have the kids who, when they read, they're slouched down and their hands are under the table and they're just looking at it like this. They need instruction that let's, sit up like a reader. Your hands are on the book. So you can learn a lot about how they feel about themselves as a reader by their behaviors. And then you're also recording what they say as they're reading. So we're going to talk about running record conventions, and you use those to record exactly what the child says and does. We'll talk about arranging the check marks on the page. When you're making your checks, they're arranged just the way the text is. So every time the text comes down to a new line, so do you. And you'll see how you record page numbers and mark page breaks. And most importantly, while the child is reading, you are quiet. You don't help. Your hands stay off the page. You don't cue them when there's a mistake. And we'll talk about what do you do when they don't know a word. But that's the hardest thing, to be quiet. I'm sure those of you who take running records regularly have kind of developed your own little shorthand for certain things. But there should be some things we all do consistently. And so if we can kind of agree that, yeah, this is what we all do, and then there are other things that, you know, do you use a caret for an insertion, or do you use a straight line? And when my kids do a self-correction, I write SC and circle it, because that way I know they didn't say SC. That was just something that I do. But we'll talk about the conventions that are agreed upon by the running record community at large. So this is just, this is an overview of the basic running record conventions. And so this would be, even if you're taking a running record with the kit, I think it's important to make a mark over every word, because you want your hand moving the whole time. If you only record when a child makes an error, they notice that you do that and their head swivels over to see what you did. If you are writing the whole time, and if you just tell them, I'm going to be writing everything you say, so you don't need to worry what I'm writing because it's what you said. And they're like, oh, well, okay then. So keep your hand moving. For a substitution, when they say something else, you write it above the word. When I'm taking a running record, I do not have time to go in and write the word that was there. I just write the substitution, and I can go back later if I need to and put the word from the text below it. But that's what it would look like if I had done the whole thing. For a self-correction, you just write SC. And as I mentioned, I circle it. It just is something I do. For an insertion, you can write the word, you could put a caret. Or as one of my children said, I used a celery to add that word. It took me a minute. Oh, and Patty this year, I demonstrate carrots during morning message and all that, and Maya just must not have been there that day because she was writing, and she said, oh, I left that word out. I said, oh, well, you could use a caret right there. And I came back, and she'd drawn a caret. Okay, back to this. If they omit a word, just use a dash, and if they repeat, an uppercase R. So these are the basic conventions. There are more, and we'll talk about that later. Okay. When teachers are first learning to take running records, it makes them very nervous to not have the text right there to do the checks over. And I will tell you that once you get really good at it, you will hate having the text there. I don't have room to write what the child is doing over that printed text. And when I'm taking a running record using this kit, or we have the Rigby kit at our school, and I'm trying to write what they're doing, I can't read it later. So I would much rather have a blank piece of paper, and that's what you're going to learn how to do today. Also, if you are using the printed text, you're looking at your printed text and not watching the child. And what you want to be doing is watching what the child is doing. So. And what you want to be doing is watching what the child is doing.